Someone once said to me that either you can be a good Muslim or you could be wealthy. It's not the reality. I am well aware that the first time someone comes across my content generically will disagree. And if they agreed, I would think that I'm doing something wrong. If you actually speak to the youth, you'll find a lot of them actually do say, we don't want to work a job. But when I was actually, 18, 19, 20 years old, that didn't really exist.
People in school, students are making more money than their teachers.
When I started my business, I remember I was trying to make my intentions make my business a way of means for me to get closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. And so when you are trying to do something for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, then one, Allah opens up doors for you never imagined. Two, you try to always see how your ventures, your business, your money, your free time make you a better Muslim. You give me a good opportunity, right? I'll sell my house, honestly. I'll sell my house to put 100 grand into a business. Honestly, I will.
Okay, now we're on. Assalamu alaikum, Abu Musa.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you doing, Akhi, man?
Alhamdulillah, man. I'm good.
You know, it's been 3 years since we had that last episode. Did you know that?
Yeah, I mean, I had a feeling, but it's been a while, man. And it honestly doesn't, it feels like, it just feels like it's been maybe a year, maybe 2 years max.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't feel like 3 years ago.
I didn't even know I knew you 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, man. I'm going to start by telling you, bro, I think for this episode, I've made maybe the best thumbnail I've ever designed. Do you want to see it for this episode that we're doing today? Yeah. You might disagree, but as someone who's not by trade a designer, I think this has probably been the best I've done. What do you think?
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah.
What do you mean it's all right? It's phenomenal.
No, yeah. I mean, look, wait. If I say it's phenomenal, then there's no room for improvement, right? So I say it's decent.
Fine. Bro, I'm very proud of that thumbnail. So that's just going out. Alhamdulillah. All right. So, bro, Jazakallah khair. I'm dusting off the cobwebs here because I haven't done an episode of podcast for about 4 or 5 weeks, about a month, which is strange for me because for the last about 7 years of my life, I've pretty much done one every week. But I ended up taking a break. I've done episodes like when there's been deaths and all sorts. I've never ever. I've always said I'm never going to miss an episode or many in a row. And then I just decided to take a big break because of burnout. And to be honest, alhamdulillah, it felt good. But so you're going to forgive any
burnout, or what was the reason behind it? I'm interested.
Yeah, it was burnout, man. Yeah, it felt like I was kind of playing catch up, dragging my feet with the podcast every week, trying to rush to get one out and stuff, and taking time out. So then at one point, there's been many weeks over the past 7 years where sometimes it's a Thursday night and we don't have an episode, and episodes release on Fridays, which now is changing because the algorithm's completely changed, man. There's no need to do an episode on a specific day. The algorithm just pushes content as and when content comes. So, but at the time anyway, we were doing one every Friday. And so there's been loads of times where on a Thursday night we haven't had an episode, and Friday morning I've managed to get an episode together and get it out by Friday night. And then I think in the last one we didn't have an episode ready. And I just was you know what? I'm not even going to go through that. I'm just not going to put an episode out this week. And then it felt good. And I was you know what? I'm going to take a break as much as because I feel like I need one. And then it just kind of carried on. And it was really good because it helped me align, it helped me think and recalibrate because I'm not the kind of person who often would do that. And so that's why I trusted myself to do it. Like I said, I haven't really done it in 7 years. But yeah, it felt good. Alhamdulillah.
Fair play, man.
So okay, I want to admit something to you as we enter the episode, and what that is I think if I'm honest, when the first few times that I had met you, I couldn't quite figure you out, right? and it was a weird feeling because it was, I don't know if you've had that a lot, right? And I was what is this guy's shtick? Because it's great and it resonates, but what is the bigger thing behind it or the bigger meaning behind it? And I'm really happy that I feel I'm really happy that I was I suppose pleasantly surprised that I now understand. I think I understand your shtick, and over those years, over those 3 or 4 years that I've known you, been watching your content and stuff like that, What I love is the consistency. And when I say the consistency, it's not necessarily the consistency in how often you put out content, but it's the consistency in your message. You have one very clear message, and that's very difficult for many people to do. And it's actually, I think, like the secret to success, right? Having like clarity is the secret to success, I would say, and like alongside consistency and things like that. And man, over the years, you've just had one very, very clear message that you've like reiterated over and over again. And I think now it's resonating with people. But I think you had to maybe like have that longevity for people like me who are like trying to figure you out, to be like, oh, like this guy really, like this is what he lives and breathes. Like he wants Muslims to have freedom. He wants Muslims to have financial freedom, to have like stability, to not rely on others, so that they can empower themselves, empower the ummah, so that they can look after their families, so that they can, because when people often talk about money, you have to you end up getting your guard up a bit, because you're like, okay, like what's the thing here? It's like when Alex Hormozy like started producing content, and then his thing was always like, I've got nothing to sell you. Like the first thing you're gonna think, but like really, have you got nothing to sell me? Like, and so you don't trust maybe as much. And I think people speak. There's not many people who speak so boldly about money like you do. And so I think a lot of people maybe had their guards up initially when they started watching your content. And I think you've proven through your consistency, your hard work, your relentless marriage to this, your relentless marriage to this one message, and you live it, and you do it in your own actions, and then you preach it as well to others. And I commend you on that, man. So I want to ask you in your own words, like, what is that message? And do you think that's a valid? Kind of analysis that I've just made?
Barakallah feek. Listen, I appreciate everything that you said. And to be honest with you, bro, I am well aware and appreciate and understand that the first time someone comes across myself, my content, generically will disagree. And if they agreed, I would think that I'm doing something wrong, right? And again, I'm talking more about the content that I try to put out in regards to, how, I think Muslims should be doing, more, and we should try to do something, etc., etc. Now, why do I say that? It's simple. It's because we have been embedded to a certain degree to live life a certain way when it comes to the dunya. And so it obviously is difficult to hear someone come along and say, actually, maybe what you were doing or what we have been doing isn't the best way. It's not to say that I know the best way. It's not to say that I know the right way, but it's definitely me bringing out question marks. And I have to appreciate that people will definitely, just be on edge, whatever you want to call it, in the beginning. And I have to understand that. And I completely accept that. So yes, I think you're completely fair in your judgment as well. And I think honestly, man, it's just a case of like, you cannot know someone by just coming across one piece of content. Like nobody knows me, even just from social media, right? Actually, this is something that I've learned from, some of our people that mutually we know, how important it is to be, put our content out, but in person be even better as people and have even better of a character, right? And so I completely get, like, and I never hold anyone to ransom if they judge me a certain way or don't like a piece of content. In fact, I expect that. So what is my message? I guess my message is, if I'm going to sum it up, it would be that, everyone should attempt to create something for themselves, or at least try to create something for themselves, whether that be self-employment, a business, or just be able to live life on their own means, whatever that might well be for them. I think that generically speaking is the message.
Yeah, and I think like sometimes it's misconstrued, like you said, to be like, oh, yeah, everyone must start a business. But I think nowadays we live in a day and age where more than ever it's possible to do it and be employed, but just do the right kind of job, maybe like a remote job where you have, I suppose, a lot of independence in that role, or maybe like working as a freelancer. But ultimately, I I think what you said at the beginning about people disagreeing with your message, I disagree with that. I think a lot of people would instantly agree with your message because there's now no denying it. We're not living, 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago where somebody coming out and saying that having freedom of your time is a valuable thing. That would have been weird then. Now, I think everybody agrees with your message. I think more so I was coming from the angle of because you're so direct with it, and also you speak about things that people are shy to speak about, rightly or wrongly so, then it's scary. Oh, someone's talking about real money. Someone's talking about real figures. Someone's giving me the reality, and it's like, why is he doing that? And so it actually reminds me of something I've spoken about a few times on the podcast, which Naval mentioned on Joe Rogan's podcast. Okay. When I heard it, man, it just like hit me, and it reminds me of kind of like what your message is. He said, we used to live in a time where he basically said he believes that we're going back to the time of like the hunter-gatherer times where everybody's essentially a freelancer. Everybody works for themselves. Everybody's out to feed their own family and hunt their own meat, right? And what they do, these individuals with these individual skills, a designer, a salesman and a marketer and stuff like that, what they do is when a project comes about, i.e. when it's time to hunt, they will come together, work on a specific project, they'll take their portion of that project and they'll go back to their families and they'll feed their families. Or in the hunter-gatherer times, people would come together, work together to hunt a specific meat, and then they'll take their portion and they'll go back to their families until the next time. Which is what he is saying, that this is the way the world is going now, and eventually in a few years' time, everybody's going to be like that. Their individual person who has a specific skill, contracts or freelances his way into connecting with a team, building out a project, going back, but constantly in control of his own time. There's no boss. There's no one telling him when and where to quit, and so on and so forth. It's built on trust. It's built on, this guy's got a track record of being great at hunting down meat. Like, let's bring this guy in to give him a portion. And likewise, it works out with a skill. And people like yourselves who are giving this message out, I think you're just accepting that is the reality that's going to happen, and trying to get people to understand that maybe. But I like that analogy. I think that analogy resonated a lot when I heard it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you say that. Actually, I came across something that Gary Vee said maybe about a year or 2 years ago, and he said it's just not attractive to be working jobs anymore according to social media and society now, right? And if you actually speak to the youth, and I say, generically speaking again, you'll find a lot of them actually do say, we don't want to work a job, for example. But when I was actually, 18, 19, 20 years old, that didn't really exist. I think social media has definitely changed that perception. And it's not to say that people don't want to work jobs, but I think there is definitely a move towards people not wanting to work jobs for the rest of their lives. Right?
Yeah.
This definitely moved that. Actually, when I was working a job, it was completely fine. I mean, I remember when I started a job, my life goal was to hit promotions and get to a certain point in that career ladder and do whatever sort of thing. When you speak to the youth, it's actually changing quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. They're seeing they're seeing their peers, like people in school, but students are making more money than their teachers.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
You spoke about Gary Vee. I've mentioned Alex Hormozi. We've mentioned a few names out here, Naval, people in the secular world who are giants in business. I wanted to ask you, what are some principles that you've taken from secular business owners, be it Warren Buffett, be it somebody more modern and recent, younger. What kind of, are there any key principles that you've taken from these individuals in business that you yourself practice or you resonated a lot with when you heard them?
Yeah, I think it's just the most obvious being persistency and consistency together. And that's something which I think, unfortunately, in our society is somewhat lacking. I think a lot of people want to hit success quite quickly. A lot of people want to be overnight successes. But, it's all about consistency, man. Whenever you read the books of these people, whenever you look into their lives, whenever you're trying to understand a company, where it got to, in 50, 60 years time, honestly, it's always just consistency. It's always just a case of, they learn from their mistakes. they carried something out, they thought, yeah, this needs to change, etc., etc. And it's always, consistency is always at the top of whatever they do. And so, yeah, I think consistency, man. All these guys are just consistent. Whenever you look at their work, whenever you look at their message, even, right, it's always consistent over a long period. And like these guys, like, of course, I'm not saying like this is something we should be doing, like, but look how much content they put out on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, with the same message. It's crazy.
Yeah. Do you ever worry that your message can come across that people might take your message and become very dunya oriented? Because you seem to have a good balance of understanding that this is, I can't attack all of the social issues. I'm going to choose one that I know very well, but you yourself understand, and you seem to have like this understanding that the dunya is meant to be in your hand and in your heart, and you seem to practice it well. Obviously, we met at an Islamic academy where we were both studying, and so I know you have that kind of like I suppose like grounding, and you have teachers and so on and so forth. But people who come across let's say you hit millions of views on a certain reel, and those Muslims that are inspired by what you say, do you ever worry about that the dunya will encompass them and that they'll get the message in the wrong way?
I think if I didn't have the fear, that would be worrying, because then I wouldn't really hold myself accountable if I didn't have the fear. So I think having the fear at that point is probably a good thing, and it is definitely a good thing. But more, I would say that if you actually look at my content, you never really see me flaunting any of the things that I do as such. More of the times, it's just me sharing a message. And I always try to emphasize that this message does not now mean that I get lost in the dunya. Actually, this message means, how can I be a better Muslim by freeing myself up from time and allowing myself to be able to travel? How does this make me a better Muslim? I've always been a massive advocate of that. And I would say, sitting on your podcast here today, I would say that actually, the biggest thing that some money or free time has allowed me to do is be able to practice my religion better than I wanted it to be. I mean, when I started my business, I remember making I was trying to make my intentions where make my business a way of means for me to get closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. And so when you have that intention, and when you are trying to do something for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, then one, Allah opens up doors for you never imagined, and two, you try to always see how your ventures, your business, your money, your free time can better make you a better Muslim. Because look, man, the reality is, like, we can't take the money into our graves. It's not going to help us after our life as such, So it's just a case of do what we can, but make it be a means for us to be better Muslims. I've always been a massive advocate of that.
A mutual friend of both of ours once told me something that he may have told you, because it's like a famous statement of his, but it kind of relates when you're talking about seeking this rizq, so that you're essentially like buying yourself that asset of time and then putting that into worship. He said, if you really think about it, Allah has blessed us to be in not even the 1% of the world, but like the 0.0000001% of the world. And that's not just for someone like yourself or myself. It's for anybody who's able to listen to this podcast right now. Because chances are, if they're listening to this podcast right now, they're not in extreme poverty, because they've got obviously access to the internet and a device and stuff like that. And most of the people who listen to the podcast, if not all, are from the West. So that already puts you in like the 1%, right? Because, and I think like to be like if you compare yourself, I'll be picking the numbers out of thin air, and like in the past I've had a clip that's gone like viral, that's been viewed like 1.1 million times, and all the comments like laughing at me because I mentioned something about tax that like I didn't like get the figures right. So I need to be careful. But essentially, like, there's a figure online that's something about if you earn X amount of money, I don't know if it's 20,000, 30,000 or something like that per annum, you're in the ultra wealthy if you compare it to like everybody, how much money everybody's making in the world. So there's that. So we're already down to like 1%, right? Then so we didn't choose that, right? Like, we didn't choose where we were going to be born and what we were going to be born into in that sense. Then born a Muslim, which is such, again, a thin chance, you could say, born Muslim. So we didn't have to like, accept the message in that sense. Then, inshallah, upon the Sunnah, because we hopefully have an understanding that you follow the Quran and the Sunnah and the way of the pious predecessors, the Salaf. And I can't remember what else he said, but that in itself, he refined it down even more. Like you're not only are you born Muslim, you're like you're aware that you should practice Islam, so you pray, and then not only do you pray, but like you have an understanding that you should follow Quran, Sunnah, and so on and so forth. And he said essentially, if you look at the statistics of everybody in the world, that puts you in like the 0.0001% of the world or whatever, right? And he said, if Allah's given you blessings, if Allah's blessed you more than 99.9 reoccurring percent of the world, then and we're that 0.001% of the world, then we should also worship Allah how 99.9 reoccurring percent of people don't worship Allah. We should the balance has to be, we shouldn't be looking at how a normal person might try and worship Allah, or like, when I say normal, I mean like try and just be like we should be trying to worship Allah according to how much blessings we have. That's probably like a wrong statement to say worship Allah according to the blessings you have, because everybody should worship Allah like to the maximum, right? But do you understand kind of the point that I'm getting to? I'm not as articulate as him.
No, I know what you're getting to. I guess you're right in what you say, man. It's where Allah has put us in the situation that we're in, and therefore we should worship Allah as which is adequate to that situation as such. Though I'm sure, man, like it's just, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So in the last episode that we did, we spoke a bit about your story. You like being in recruitment and starting a recruitment business. I feel like over the last 3 years, you've made a few steps forward since then. At the time, you had the recruitment business. You were quite active in it. You still had your office in the UK. You were in the UK at the time. It seems now that's a machine that kind of runs by itself, and you've moved on to kind of like other projects and stuff. So what kind of projects are you working on right now?
So the recruitment business for me it's still going. Okay. I guess it's one of those where it's, when you've done the hard work, you've got, the way the recruitment industry works is, once you've got your clients, it's very easy. You don't actually have to do that much. It's just the beginning it can be difficult. So the recruitment business still runs, that still carries on. We're trying to do a lot more with Saudi Arabia now. We believe that is the market that we should be focusing on. We're 2030 in Saudi, basically. We've got some connection, we've got some links there. So that's sort of where our focus is from the recruitment side. And then, yeah, man, like, I guess that was 3 years ago. A lot has changed. I mean, to be fair, if you had this podcast with me about 2 years ago, I probably would have said not that much has changed. But then in the last year, a lot has changed, in the sense where I'm just doing a lot more. It's a case where the recruitment business can handle itself. It runs itself. I don't have to do too much. So now I have time as well as some extra funds to then invest in other businesses. So that's exactly what I'm doing, to be fair. So yeah, man, we've started a couple of companies now. There's an educational platform that I've started recently. I've gone to Pakistan to set up a call center there. How does that call center work? I want to understand that a bit more. So I was being teased by your social media when you were over there and you were searching for an office, and I was avidly watching. And then alhamdulillah, it seems like everything's been launched. So it's a call center. Can you walk me through kind of how that works? How does the business side of that work, and what is it that you set in place? Yeah, so to be fair, it's fairly simple, in the sense where, okay, so after COVID, what ended up happening is a lot of people started working remotely, right? So my understanding was, well, if people are working remotely now, that means, actually, if they can work from somewhere in the UK, if that work can be carried out, then there is no reason why that person can't work from anywhere in the world, right? Because we're going through that transition. And so I believe that is the transition a lot of companies will go down in another, 2, 3, 4 years. I guess it's just us getting into the ground and having a kickabout before everyone else does. But basically, the business is, if a business has 20 people, right, carrying out some sort of customer service or sales, business development, we will provide those same employees in sense where with the same skill set in Pakistan at maybe 15 or 20% of the price. So that's basically what that call center outsourcing company, whatever you want to call it, is in Pakistan. That's exactly what I'm basically setting up, or have rather already set up in Pakistan.
Amazing. It sounds slightly similar to what Nick Huber does. Do you know about Nick Huber and his business?
No, I don't, to be fair.
It's kind of similar, but I think from what I remember, I believe his is like connecting rather than actually owning like a company. I think he works mainly with the similar kind of model, but in the Philippines, perhaps.
Sure.
Or in that part of the world, but he kind of connects those dots rather than being actually like being that company, and like is encouraging companies and he like makes all these jokes, like he's like, I love going to companies in the US, I love buying a company that pays its workers $30 an hour and has 3-hour lunch breaks and gives them the amenities of a gym and dental and all this kind of stuff. I love firing those employees and then hiring like, so he has like a running joke about he's quite the troll on social media, but yeah, the sentiment makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I guess it's I guess the reason what in essence what I'm trying to do differently is obviously, and I mean this in the most respectful way, when a company hears someone like me at the end of the phone, they by default will trust that service a lot more than someone calling from, for example, Pakistan. So there are companies that already do this, but the problem is usually you don't have a link in between, so you don't have the person who can generate the business from the UK or America or Canada, and then supply the people. So I guess what we're trying to do is make sure that the service we provide is to the best that it can be, because actually there are a lot of skilled people in Pakistan. And obviously, if I'm not necessarily the front of it, but if I'm winning the business, if I'm sitting in front of a CEO on whatever sort of thing, he's much more likely to trust someone like myself compared to someone maybe from the country where we're outsourcing staff from.
Yes, a native English speaker, yeah. And are you teaching your staff like various AI tools and stuff to help speed up their process, or is it just like basic? Because there's stuff like, I think Clay. There's a few other softwares now that like automate outreaching, just make the job easier, where the person sitting at the top kind of is managing more than actually having to physically do a lot of the interaction.
So I'm working on something within AI as well. And it will probably be quite closely linked to what we're doing in Pakistan, in terms of the Pakistan office generically right now is sales, development, lead generation. Every other company basically needs someone in that side. And then we're creating something similar within the AI space. It just needs a bit more time. It needs time is probably the best thing. It just needs more development. But the thing is, if we could generate companies and if we can get links and stuff with companies right now who will use people in Pakistan, with time, AI will probably take over that role anyway.
Yeah, and it is for a lot of things, but you're right. Like these things, still need to be refined.
Yeah.
Going back to the like mission statement that you have, which is to help Muslims live a more independent career, so that they can like be there to support their families, to worship Allah more, and so on and so forth. If somebody's listening to this and is like, well, yeah, I want to do that, but I don't know what to do. If Abu Musa was starting from scratch, how would you do it now? In 2023,
I would start creating content on social media. Is where I would start.
Okay.
I think that is number one, because I think I mentioned this a few times now actually, and what I've mentioned is you cannot sell a service or product or anything else unless people are seeing you, unless people are looking at it, right? And so it might not necessarily have to be me being the face of it, because I know, some Muslims don't want to have their face on social media. Completely understandable. That's fine. So, but I would some way have something on social media or create content, because look, whatever product you have, whatever service you have, once you put social media behind it, you're going to sell a product or a service much more than if you were not to have social media. So the first thing, honestly, I would do is just start creating content on the social media. It's not going to take much time, couple of hours a week, maybe, if that. And then I would start worrying and thinking about, once people start looking at you and looking at your products and services, you can create something. I mean, it sounds odd, right? But look, how many people don't we know, created a coffee or created a pen, a diary or something like that, and you'll be surprised how much money they make. But it's just because people view their content, right?
Yeah.
And so the product and service you can worry about after, and you can refine it after. But I would probably just start getting eyes on my page, whether that's me or something else. That's probably what I would start with now.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I was thinking about this same thing myself, and I kind of had a similar conclusion, except I was quite bullish on that. Once a person builds some kind of traction to themselves, the quickest way to build cash would be through a service-based industry. And I think like anytime any of us have ever been in a situation, this stands true for you because obviously you've been in recruitment, and similarly for me, as much as Freshly Grounded is kind of my heart and soul, it's not a service-based industry. And when it comes to cash flow generation, you can't almost like at the beginning be a service-based industry, so like agency kind of stuff, marketing agency, copywriting agency, going to businesses and providing them a service that they need to like build out their brand. People are much more likely to invest in something for their business, for their own growth and for their own some could say greed, as opposed to like investing in or indulging in a form of entertainment or product or something like that. So I think if you're like down and out and you're thinking, how can I start? Would you agree that a service-based kind of a service-based model is what would generate the most cash the quickest?
Yeah, of course. And I think one of the main factors, obviously, in that being that if you don't actually have the funds, then providing a service in exchange for money is going to be the best way. There are many services these days you can provide to get a decent amount, to be fair.
So I've also heard you speak about real estate on social media. I'm just kind of picking out. I want to like pick out all of the various things that you've kind of expanded your content around. It's almost like you're like building this. You're building this like system for people. I don't know if you did it intentionally or unintentionally, but I really enjoy it, and I commend you. I think you should carry on. But you started speaking a bit about real estate, and I'm interested in kind of like that journey a bit, not necessarily specifically your journey in real estate, because I'm sure that you want to keep some stuff to yourself. But what made you decide that real estate was the next step in terms of investments?
So I'll just quickly touch upon the first thing that you actually said there in regards to me mentioning a couple of different things in finance. And I'll tell you a little story actually. When I was 21, 22 years old, I was...
How old are you now, by the way?
Huh?
How old are you now?
What?
How old are you?
31. I'm 31 years old.
Okay.
This is where you say you don't look 31, bro.
Oh, sorry. 31. Oh, no. You don't look 31, to be fair. I would have. My guess would have been like 29, 28.
No, I appreciate that, but listen, honestly, I don't mind. But when I was about 21, 22 years old, I was actually, I won't go into who, but I was getting a lot of pressure from people, family, friends, whatever you want to call it, in taking out a house, because they were like, look, you make okayish money, and so the obvious next step is to get a house on a mortgage, right? And I was obviously against that because I knew it wasn't permissible, and then I was getting all this noise. And then, a part of my heart was like, look, like my whole family is saying this. And I just wasn't hearing that this isn't the right thing to do. Sometimes it sounds bad, but, when you're young, you could be on the fence. And when you're on the fence, you just need someone to remind you and say, by the way, don't do that. And that could be enough, by the way, to pull you back. And it's funny, actually, I came across a video. It was a non-Muslim. And he said, buying a house in the beginning when you have no money is the worst thing you can do. Anyway, not the point. Because of that person's video, I didn't actually end up going and getting a house on a mortgage, and probably saved myself from a lot, from the deen and the dunya aspect. And so today of course. And so today when I mention these things, man, it's like, I know that I was in some environments in the corporate world. I was in some situations where a lot of us go through, but sometimes it's just one person to say something once can be enough for you not to do something or to do something. And so that's why I try to be the older brother to the younger generation, because I realize that there aren't that many people you can rely on and say, actually, this person won't he does fear Allah, and actually, like, he won't tell me to do something haram. That's very important, man. And so that's why I try to mention things from my experience. Now, in terms of the property, so I don't, and I would not, I don't invest in property unless this is this is so okay. I'm gonna have to explain this, but I don't invest in property until I really can. And what I mean by that is, um, if, for example, I had £100,000 in my bank account and the property was going to cost me £100,000, I personally would not buy that property, because I would rather do something else with that £100,000, like start a different business or like start something else. That's me personally. That's what I do. So yes, I have recently purchased, or rather, I purchased a property in Dubai. I then sold it. Now I'm purchasing something in Pakistan. I'm looking at maybe even buying a hotel in Pakistan, inshallah. It's sort of in works at the moment. So the hotel is, I guess, more of a business, but I don't invest in property to live in, and I buy property when it's a case of the money is there. I have nothing else to do with it, and that's when I actually purchase.
Why did you sell the property in Dubai? You got a good deal.
Yes, and I was going to start something else with that money. So I was going to start a business with that money. So I sold it.
Put out the cash.
And then, but yeah, man, like, honestly, like, alhamdulillah, I was very surprised. Like, I think I bought it for like 1.1 million. I sold it for 1.47 dirhams, by the way, dirhams, right? Before anyone starts thinking Abu Musa's killing.
Yeah, so for conversion purposes, that's like around 200, between 200 250 grand. Pounds.
Yeah, there or thereabouts. And we made about 65, 70,000 pounds, like, and in a year, which sounds ludicrous, because actually that's
it's
like
not
30%.
weird for Dubai. Yeah, in Dubai that happens.
Dubai.
Yeah. I think like the property market in Dubai is a tough one for people to get their head around, but it's amazing because if you have £80,000 cash, you can cash flow a house, like a studio or one bed in a certain area in Dubai, and buy it outright and put it on rent. And obviously the return on rent might not be like, for an 80 grand studio, you might be getting, £5,000 rent yearly. But I think there's two benefits that people, there's two benefits. One that people obviously know about, one that people don't consider as much as they should. The benefit that people obviously know about is that you're putting your money into a property. So while you're collecting your rent, you haven't lost the money. The money still exists, but it's just in a form of property. It's just not liquid. And the second obviously thing about that is that if the value goes up, like any investment, then you get more money out of it. But there's a second thing that I think people don't consider as much, which I think is the biggest value in purchasing property. And it's simply the fact that if you've got £80,000 sitting in the bank versus if you've got it sitting in a property, it's not about whether one. Let's say you don't, because you're a Muslim, you've opted out of gaining any interest on it in the bank, and let's say you never make any money on the property, right? So you don't lose money, but the value doesn't really go up, right? You get about 80 grand back if you were to put it out. It's still so much more advantageous to have it in property because you're not in the system of riba. Because anytime your money is being sat at the bank, I'm not saying don't have a bank account, because of course we all need bank accounts. But the point is that anytime it is in a bank account, that bank is using your money to purchase whatever it is, bonds, giving out loans to people for their mortgages and stuff like that. And when it's in a property, that's not happening. It's not in that system. So purely for the sake of barakah, it could just, if you've got money sitting in a bank and it's sitting in a property, just want to consider barakah of your wealth. If you do it with the intention that you're trying to remove it from a system of riba, Allah is the one who provides, and Allah is the one who rewards, and He is generous in His reward. So it's kind of feels like a no-brainer in that sense, right? Like I don't know where else in the world you can buy property for that cheap. Because you can buy property for that cheap in loads of places in the world, but buying property for that cheap where the projections of like, you know, Dubai is still like the place that people are moving to at such a rapid speed. Businesses are growing. There's talk of like some of the biggest technology companies in the world moving their headquarters to Dubai. So there's not many countries where you can purchase property for that kind of price that has the potential to become the capital city of the world in the next couple of decades. Like it's already like people say, you know, New York, London, Paris, Dubai, you know, that kind of, it's already in the conversation, but it's just growing and getting, you know, more and more popular, and more businesses are moving here. And so it feels like this is obviously not financial advice, but yeah, that's why I was saying, why did you pull out your money, man? Go and reinvest it.
To be honest, man, like, yeah, for me, I'm just, you know what it is, like I just enjoy starting different businesses as well. So maybe for me, it's different. Like you can't compare my situation to everyone else's situation, because
you're a grafter. You get allured by, like, I think you just like to buy and sell and move, and
you give me a good
hustle,
opportunity.
right?
I'll sell my house. Honestly, I'll sell my house to put 100 grand into a business. Honestly, I will. And so that's why I'm saying,
I like that about you, man.
Like it's a bit different for me. Like, you know, like I came up with the idea of setting something up in Pakistan, you know, 5 months ago, you know, and today here we are, alhamdulillah. Like I'm going again in 2 weeks, where I'll probably be taking out an office big enough for about 150 people. So the reality is, it is a bit different for me. But obviously, you know, some people don't like risk, and that's fair enough. I just can't understand
love risk.
that. I love it, man. Honestly, I couldn't.
I love it too. I love the game. I love the game, man. Like I've started using that. I heard it somewhere. I just started using that sense of, like, people are like, why are you like? I like, people hear the hours I work and they're like, how can you work such crazy hours? Like, my brother-in-law's here staying with me right now. He's like, you like, well, I work for the minute I wake up, and I'm like, I just love the game. Like I don't, I hope I don't miss out on obligation, on people's rights. One of the big things is, by being in a different country to your family, you do actually open up a lot more space, because there's no gatherings and all that kind of stuff. So alhamdulillah, I'm up in the mornings with the kids. I drop my kids to school. I pick my kids up from school every day, and stuff like that. But I'm working, like, training for that, and I'm obsessed. I just love I don't know what it is that I love, because it's not necessarily like, I don't ever look at numbers. I'm not like watching numbers on a spreadsheet. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this money is coming from me. It's like the thumbnail I just showed you. I was like, oh, wow, like I just wanted to change up the vibe of Fresh Uganda. I'm like, that's cool, man. It's like suave. I just love the game. I could spend 2-3 hours doing that, and then like creating content, and then like trying to understand like what works, what doesn't work. It's just like it's so gamified in my mind now, and it becomes so fun. So I get it, and risk is a huge part of that, because you got sometimes you're down and out, and other times you're, you know, riding high. So yeah,
you have to. I guess you have to, man. Like, I guess it's interesting. You mentioned something interesting there about our obligations that we obviously have to our families as well. But I guess it's different, right? Like, you know, if you have the ability to be able to do something like this, and if you have the free time, then you can just take your child and your wife, for example, away for like 3-4 days, and, you know, just away from your business, for example, and you just spend time with them, right? But that's something, obviously, someone else would say, no, actually, for me, it's important to spend, you know, a half an hour or hour a day every single day, you know. But I might say, for me, I like to take out 3-4 days in the month and just forget about everything and just focus on my family. It's not to say, by the way, I don't see my family for a month, but I'm just
for half an hour a day.
I mean, my wife probably thinks I see her for about half an hour in a month. But
Musa, where are you right now? You're always moving.
So I'm in the UK currently.
Okay, nice.
Inshallah, I'm planning on going to Pakistan in about 2.5 weeks, and then after that, I'll be in Sharjah. So. But I don't know after that, to be honest. I do plan on going Umrah at some point.
Do you just have your apartment or your home in like Sharjah, for example, or in Pakistan? Like, when you come back to Sharjah, do you like get a new one, like rent out a new place, or you got one that you just kind of got a long-term like lease on, and just like, because you just seem to move so much. Like I'm the complete opposite of you by that. I hate traveling. I hate moving. So I like to just stay. In this summer, I took 9 flights. I wrote a newsletter article about it because I couldn't believe it. it was the worst, but like I learned so much from those 9 flights. But alhamdulillah, in that time I did go to Umrah and stuff, which was nice. But yeah, I like staying at home. So how did it work? Like, do you just hotel it?
So I've got my family home in the UK, and then
Okay.
I've got a home in Sharjah, basically long term.
Okay. Okay.
And
Fine.
then I mentioned just earlier that we're planning on getting something in Pakistan long term as well. So I guess it's just a case of then it doesn't matter really, does it? I could just and the good thing about Sharjah is like Sharjah to Pakistan is like it's 2 hours, and then I can just be in Pakistan. So it's funny actually because my wife before she got married to me had never tried. She maybe I think traveled like once, and then like
Okay.
now was like, you know what? I think I like traveling now, but she used to hate traveling. But
Yeah.
now it's like we're traveling like 3-4 times a month sometimes. It's but you know
Oh,
what?
I'm sure when you're putting her on business class, she's all of a sudden starts liking traveling.
This is the thing. When we go as a family, we go economy.
Oh, okay, makes sense. But I'm
But,
still economy, man. I'm still economy.
no, to be honest, man, like for me, it's just I have this time. To be honest, it's not. Man, it sounds. I hate it. I don't want it to sound like, oh my god, look at me, I go in business. It's not that, but more. I would say maybe about a year and a half ago, I started traveling on business. Not going to lie, game changer. Find economy.
Yeah.
A bit of a struggle now, especially because of the flights from Dubai to Pakistan. If anyone knows about the flights from Dubai to Pakistan, they are not easy. Okay, so
Yeah, I saw you did PIA business class the other day.
now, yeah, so the PIA business class. I mean, yeah, let's not go too much into that. It's not really business class,
Fine.
but
Fine.
Emirates does go. Emirates does go. And to be honest, because of the Skyward points and stuff, I just stick to Emirates now. Not that I've spent any. I've just what happened?
No, okay, fine. Yeah, I understand what you're saying because I've got the Skyward points as well. Well, this is what I was going to talk about because I have friends who, like, they travel with their wife and kids and like they're all flying business. I'm like, how did you do? Did you cash flow? And they're like, no, I paid £50 or like £200 all in. I'm like, how? So I should say that I'd never known how to do that because I don't get credit cards, and I would know. I assume that I'm not trying to like expose anything on the podcast, but I imagine you don't have credit cards either.
Yeah,
and
I don't have
yeah,
credit
fine. I was like, I do that. Yeah, it's like this be a really awkward podcast. So it's like you're like alhamdulillah, like Allah is the one who like facilitates, isn't it? Like you might miss out on £200 worth of business class flights, but yeah, it's definitely safer.
You make it up somewhere else, man. You make it up
I feel
somewhere
like the
else.
credit,
To be honest,
you know the credit card thing, by the way. I feel like the kind of content, I don't know if you've done content on credit cards, but the kind of content you create, it would be perfect, man. Because we did a talk in London for Worldsea, right? And when we were speaking about Riba and stuff, to one of the shuyukh, one of our teachers, he was saying that he was talking about the fact that you can't enter a contract of riba, right? And so people will buy a sofa on a 12-month. They buy a sofa that's 12-month interest free, and so as long as you pay it off in the 12 months, it's interest free. If you go over, the interest only starts then. So people are like, and even me, bro, I was like, okay, cool, like that's halal because it's interest free for 12 months as long as I pay it off in 12 months. That's a very common misconception. And it was only once I spoke to one of my teachers, he was like, no, you're not even allowed to enter a contract of riba because what if you fall into the 13th month? Like when COVID happened, bro, CEOs were going to food banks. So it's not impossible to assume that could happen. And so with the credit cards, again, I'm speaking out of my realm a bit here because obviously I'm no scholar. And but, you know, I think there's like this, I think there's a lot of people, man, who like get credit cards and like, oh, I just buy a credit card. I just have a credit card and then pay it off every month. So technically it's no interest. And then, so it's fine. But it's like, obviously you're entering a contract of riba, right? And then the other thing with the credit cards is that I think like there's like great marketing that they've done, which is that like, you have to build your credit score. I'm talking about the UK, right? Because I don't know about any other systems. But like you have to build. Yeah, you have to build your credit score. And what I don't understand is that first of all, you don't need to build a credit score really if you're smart.
Never going to take out credit. Really.
Right, like if you're not gonna finance a car or finance a sofa and so on and so forth, how? But also, I've never had a credit card, and my credit rating is great.
Mm.
So is it just like a marketing thing that like in the UK, like we've been able to like convince people of?
I think it definitely exists. I have to be honest, man. Like, look, at the end of the day, you're not actually going to care about your credit report. Mine's probably terrible, by the way. I don't even know what it is. I've never checked in the last 8, 9 years. At the time when I thought I was maybe going to take out a house was the last time I actually checked it. It used to give me a headache, by the way. Um, I think it's interesting you say that, man. Like, the problem I have, I speak about the things that I speak about, but if you actually notice, I don't speak about things that um, can get a bit out. Basically, it's out of my
Hairy,
league.
yeah,
It's out of my league. You know what I mean? It's out of my pay. It's out of my pay grade. So
yeah.
the thing is, if you speak to the people of knowledge, man, like even like some of the people of knowledge that you're like, you think that you can just go up to them and ask them a question, you'll be surprised. Especially when it comes to finance questions, they're extremely careful, man. Like financial questions or
Yeah.
financial things around finance, like they are super careful. Like sometimes I've actually had to go to like some big authority in Saudi sort of thing just to get a question answered. It's crazy. So I realized like it's just above my pay grade some things, and
Yeah,
I can
yeah, I get that. Yeah.
like I can mention some of the most like obvious things like look like don't fall into riba and stuff. The amount of times I've spoken to my sheikh, he's explained a situation to me about a model, and like I've understood it, spoke to him, I've gone back to someone and said, this is what the sheikh said basically, and then someone else has turned around and said nope, seems fine, and then I'm like, man, like what my like you know what I mean?
You know what? But it's so true. There's so many times in my life that I've been humbled by knowledge, and
Yeah.
it's true. And it's like uh, a, a really, really like simple and simplified example of it could be that someone in your family is eating Haribos that have gelatin in it, right?
Yeah,
And
sure.
and there will be a time in your life you like that's haram, and then
Yeah.
like you're on a mad one, right? And
Yeah.
and then like as you go, you hear there's a scholarly difference of opinion. So as we now know, when there's a scholarly difference of opinion on a fiqh issue, you can't be harsh with people because a scholarly difference of opinion. Would you fight that scholar? As to whether you believe gelatin is permissible or impermissible, the point is now it's an issue of difference of opinion, scholarly difference of opinion. So all of a sudden, I'm now screaming that people don't have Haribos, and it's a scholarly difference of opinion. So now it's possible. There's people who actually not miskeen me that actually have knowledge who have said it's fine, and so then it's like you get humbled by knowledge. That's a very simplified example of then, like you said, when you talk about me sitting and talking about credit cards, somebody talk about like all these different discussions that are like really intricate issues, and then there's like so many times in your life you're like, oh snap, like I shouldn't have spoken about that because either I didn't understand the issue completely, I didn't understand all the different options there were, I didn't understand the people that I was speaking to, the people that were listening, and so on and so forth. So you're right, man.
Well,
And
there's
like,
so many times, man. There's so many times, like, especially like, look, because I speak about fine, like, so many times someone will come up to me and say, bro, I do this. Is this haram? And I'm like, oh, listen, this is way above my pay grade now.
yeah.
I'm not the person where you should be asking whether this is permissible or not, right? But then it's like, but the other thing is also, right? And we have to understand this, that I am a layman, right? But I would say that we still know who we can ask a question to, and you'll be surprised in knowing how many people do not have anyone they can even ask a question to, right? Which is scary, to be honest, because it means that they actually have, where we might even be able to message someone and ask someone, a lot of people don't actually even have someone to ask a question to. And so like I might say, look, like let me see if I can ask my sheikh, basically, right? And of course, like if I ask the sheikh and then he answers and I just forward the answer, that's fine, right? But there's been times where I've spoken to like 3-4 people of knowledge and I'm like really satisfied with the answer, and I'm like, yeah, it makes sense, like obviously the whatever sort of thing. And you have to understand, like, of course, like they're obviously a slave to me asking them the question and how I ask the question as well. And then 5-6 months later, I'll come across something, and someone who I also maybe think, is upon the haqq and upon the truth, and he has a difference on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
issue. And I'm like, I need to, like,
Yeah, I need to
and
stay
then it
out of it.
confuses me as well. Then I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I need to be careful, like, because
Uh,
I think that this is not permissible, because I've spoken to like 3, 4 teachers, but maybe it's not to say you can't say that, oh, it's not permissible because fulan, like the sheikh, he told me us. But again, it's a case of not being harsh, as you said, right? Not so, because someone might, that they might be the student of the teacher that said actually it's fine because of whatever sort of reason. It's careful. We have to be careful, man. We have to be careful. If we're
Yeah,
gonna put
you're right.
ourselves
Like
out there, we have to.
the one of the best advice I got when I first started podcasting, or I first started, I think even like before Fresh Uganda, I think I started creating content. It was Abu Bakr, Islam. He came to my office and he said to me, "Just stay in your lane." And he said, "I don't sit here." I won't tell you the specific advice that he gave me because it was a
Sure,
private conversation. He might not have wanted that to be shared, but he gave me examples of himself and about types of content that he himself doesn't create. And he kind of gave me an example where he was like Faisal, you shouldn't. I wasn't at the time, but he was like giving an example. He was like, for example, you shouldn't be sitting there trying to give da'wah to people who are trying to get out of the road life, right? And so he was like, he said to me, you've obviously found a niche that you understand, and serve Allah through that, essentially, and stay in your lane and don't go out of your lane. And so these kind of discussions that we're having make a lot of sense, because it's like, they're just not discussions for, but it doesn't mean to say that they can't be, in the sense that we ourselves should police ourselves and say we need to seek more knowledge. We need to become, we have the same, we are going to be judged by the same Allah, by the same Lord that the scholars are going to be judged by. We should try and become scholars. It's a shame that I am the age that I am and I'm not a hafid of Quran, or I haven't studied some of the basic books that need to be studied for a student of knowledge, and so on and so forth, in the Arabic language, that I'm not fluent in the Arabic language, so on and so forth. So it's not an excuse to say, I'm just a layman, so like I don't know. We should try to become those those great ulama. But as it stands right now, we should for sure stay in our lanes. I think that's, again, one of the things that I love about your content is, I said to you at the beginning of the podcast, I love the fact that it's just one very clear message. And if you see some of the best individuals who are killing it right now in even the secular world, they just have one very clear message. Some of the people, I often speak about Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey has become a billionaire off what he does, and his message is simply, don't get into debt. It's very clear. It's that's all it is. Every pound should have a label on it. Don't get into debt, and you can be a millionaire off your income. Most people who are millionaires are not millionaires because they fell into money or they got a big inheritance. They became a millionaire because they were smart with their monthly money, and when it came to it, they didn't overspend. They didn't go out every day and stuff like that. They put money aside. They made investments and so forth. So it's one clear message. So I just think that I love that you do that same thing that I was kind of advised, which is you have one thing, you stay by it, and like you just said here, you try not to even go past that, even from an Islamic perspective, trying to have that wara, trying to have that protection of consciousness that what you say could be seen by millions of people, and you don't want to misguide a bunch of people either, right?
I think that's what differentiates. In essence, it's what I realized. Look, there's a lot of people that obviously people can turn to as, if you're just looking for business advice, there's a lot of people you can turn to, right? And I'm not saying come listen to me for business advice. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, because of some of my experiences, because of certain situations, it might not even be because I've gone and sought the knowledge. It might just be because of the experience of me setting something up. I've realized actually I can't do X because of X, right? Or whatever it is, the service I provide, I have to make sure it's like this, or a product I make sure I have to make sure that I have the product, whatever it might well be. And so sometimes it's just a case of that people can relate from the avenue of, okay, at least we know he tries to look, even my businesses, right? This is funny. I'll tell you something actually. I started the platform teacher. I'm sure you've come across it, but I
remember
don't
you
actually
telling me about it before you started it.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
And I don't have any women on it, right? And I don't have any intention of having any women on it. Now, that obviously means that, it might be perceived a certain way in the future. but I don't care, man, because it's Allah where Allah gives my risk, and I don't care. Like, I'm not gonna do something which I don't believe to be appropriate, right? And so I'm not gonna have women on a camera and sort of thing, and I'm not gonna be showing that off. So it's a case of just also when I was young, someone once said to me that either you can be a good Muslim or you could be wealthy. Like, that stuck in my head, man. I was in year 4, bro. I still remember I was going up to my class and someone said that to me, and I still remember it. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I create the content, because there are youngsters right now who believe that they can't be good Muslims and be
And be
successful in the
wealthy.
dunya as well.
SubhanAllah, so true, man.
You know,
So true.
and
Yeah.
it's not the reality. You can be
So,
good Muslim, you can stay away from the haram, and in fact, the barakah that you get in your money from the work which is permissible is much greater than you will ever
so,
know. And
so.
so that's key, man. That's key. And so that's why, like, I try to relate to that side as well.
Yeah, man, I rate it a lot, man. Honestly, I resonate
Oh,
with it a lot. I think it's a shame that when you're in the Emirates, we don't meet up. Even when we're in the UK, we didn't meet up enough. So we should definitely make it a thing to go for coffee at least once a quarter. We can have a once a financial quarter. We can have a sit down and
inshallah.
use that as
I'll be in
measuring
Sharjah.
stick.
I'll be there from October, inshallah. And to be fair, I was planning
Inshallah,
on inviting all the brothers around. It's just that I haven't actually settled down completely myself. I
no
came in
problem.
March, and I've just been traveling for like 5 months. But inshallah, I do plan on doing something for all the brothers there. So I'll definitely see you, inshallah.
Inshallah. Definitely. Jazakallah khair. Listen, and thanks for
Barakallah
giving
feek.
me your time on the podcast, for being the
No
first
worries, man.
podcast back. And all the best, inshallah. May Allah protect you and put barakah in everything
Ameen.
that you do and in your
Ameen.
travels and in your family. And inshallah, we can run this back, man. It'd be lovely to have you on again, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Barakallah feek, bro. Assalamu alaikum.